will see you'll see one of us at your community board meetings, and we'll be here as a resource to all of you. I also want to thank Tom Lucania, our senior advisor, who was my predecessor, for his guidance throughout this appointment process. As you know, it was a long process, and we thank you all for sticking with us. In addition to our office being a resource, we have brought resources here to present to you all tonight. So I ask for your patience, learning, everything that they have to teach you. If you have any questions, because we have a jam-packed agenda, I'm going to ask that you just email them to me, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. I want to thank Lehman College for hosting us, for BronxNet for recording this. We'll be sending it to those who are unable to make it, and if you need the recording, just for reference, we'll send it to you all as well. And now I'm very proud to introduce our Deputy Borough President, First Dominican American, Janet Peguero.
Good evening, Bronx. Buenas noches. So many familiar faces. Congratulations. I'm excited. I'm hyped. I hope you all are too. Yes? Beautiful. Thank you so much to our Director of Community Boards. What an exciting evening today is. Know that this was a labor of love. This event was pulled together, understanding the commitment that you all have as new community board members. And so thank you to the entire community board unit for pulling such a special swearing-in ceremony event tonight in honor of you all in celebration of your commitment. Again, we want to thank our host, Lehman College and BronxNet. Shout out to BronxNet for always being there for us, covering the news that matters, okay? This is what matters. And so thank you, BronxNet, for celebrating us and making this event happen. Once again, congratulations, felicidades. And if I had another language in me, I will say it in that language as well, but I will leave it to you to help me in that. So congratulations on your new role as community board members. Again, what an amazing turnout. Can we just take a second to look around the room? Look at one another, look at each other, knowing that we are partners in service moving forward. And again, the turnout speaks to each and every one of you's commitment. We want to thank and recognize, and I'll leave that to my favorite boss in the world to acknowledge later on, but know that our community board chairs are here, our district managers and staffers of the community boards are here. We say thank you for your presence and your support. To our new members, again, thank you for taking on a new role that will be challenging, but that's part of it, right? That's part of your commitment. And some of us are new members, ever serving in this role, in this distinction, but know that you have an entire community supporting you through this process. We know that each and every one of you had to go through an extensive application process and interview, and that each of you were chosen because you have that experience, you have that commitment that makes you invaluable to our community boards. You all represent the diversity, both geographically and culturally, that makes up this vibrant tapestry that is the Bronx. We know that community boards serve as the anchors of our local democracy, truly committed and based within community. You are the first line to the people that we serve, and you are the change agents. You make what we do possible. And so at Borough Hall, we will make sure to be your partners, your supporters, and make sure that we celebrate you each and every time and opportunity that we get, because we know that your commitment is that much important to the work that we do every day. And so it is an honor. Remember that it is an honor to be a community board member, and it carries the responsibility of being involved, engaged, informed. I know that each and every one of you will take this responsibility seriously, and we have every confidence that you will make your communities so proud. And with that, we say thank you. And now it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you all someone who is deeply committed to this borough, as you all are, someone who wakes up every morning on purpose, with the purpose, and fights for a better future for us all. Please help me introduce our Bronx Borough President, Vanessa L. Gibson.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our official Community Board member orientation and swearing in. Congratulations to each and every one of you. 145 new members proudly representing the borough's 12 community boards. From Community Board 1 to Community Board 2 to Community Board 3 to Community Board 4 to Community Board 5 to Community Board 6 to Community Board 7 to Community Board 8 to Community Board 9. Community Board 9? That's right. To Community Board 10. To Community Board 11. To Community Board 12. You represent the borough of the Bronx. You are our beacon of hope for a better tomorrow. We have worked diligently and hard every day at Bronx Borough Hall to make sure that we select the very best of our applicant pool. For the first time in the history of the Office of the Bronx Borough President, this year's application was digital and in more than one language, Inglés y Español. Because we know that we represent a diverse and rich borough, a beautiful mosaic of different cultures and nationalities. And we know that many residents do not speak English as a primary language. So we were very strategic, thoughtful, and intentional in making sure that we selected the very best. Over 500 applicants to join 12 community boards. And you all made it. You made it. You all made it to this step, and we say congratulations. We look forward to working with all of you as our newest members of 12 community boards. 600 members that represent 12 community boards, from the South Bronx to the West Bronx to the East Bronx to the Central Bronx to the North Bronx. 61 neighborhoods that we proudly represent as your borough president. We are excited as we begin this new chapter for this new season and for this reason, to make our borough a better place to live, to work, and to raise our families, to make the Bronx the best. That is our job. That is our responsibility. No matter the title we have in front of our names, I want all of you to know, as newest members of the community board, you are entrusted with a unique responsibility to make decisions, to collaborate, to work together, to engage, to partner with elected officials, city agencies, community partners, CBOs, non-for-profits, faith-based organizations, all of our credible messengers in education, social services, healthcare, economic development, small business, dealing with climate change, environmental justice, transportation equity and access, so that the 1.5 million residents of this borough have access and opportunity. Because I truly believe if you know better, you will do better. And for many of our residents, they have not been exposed to what better is. So every day that we serve at Borough Hall, our responsibility is to raise the standards, to not accept the status quo, to not just accept the floor, but rather aim for the ceiling. That is the work of our community boards, of all 12. And we are grateful to have incredible partners and leaders as our district managers and our chairpersons. So I first want to thank, as it has been mentioned, our colleagues here at Lehman, This is an amazing institution of higher education led by our president, Dr. Fernando Delgado, and the entire team at Lehman for always opening their doors to us. I want to thank the incredible team at Borough Hall. It's amazing to serve as borough president, but it is a blessing to have a partner, to have someone that stands at my side, that shares our values, that aligns with our principles, and that is our Deputy Borough President, Janet Peguero. Thank you. You all know that we are special in the Bronx. We are the only borough that is led by 2 women and 2 women of color. And I believe that is happening on purpose, because we want to show all of our children and scholars of the Bronx, our little boys and our little girls, that they can look at us and see themselves, all of their hopes, all of their aspirations, and all of their dreams. And we are so incredibly grateful to have added our new director of the Community Boards Unit, Kira Gannon. Thank you so much, Kira. Kira has hit the ground running when she left Community Board 8 and gained all the other community boards, all other 11, and we said this is a tall order, but Kira was made for this moment. She was built for this role, and she is doing amazing work working with all 12 of our community boards. So Kira, we say thank you for your leadership, and thank you for bringing us together. Our senior advisor, many of whom you know in his former role as the director of the Community Boards Unit, our very own Tom Lucania. Thank you, Tom. And you're going to have presentations this evening from our very own General Counsel. I want to recognize Robert Ramaglia. We're so grateful to have our General Counsel with us as well. He keeps me on my toes, and usually when I ask questions, he tells me no. And it's okay, because we like that. We need to make sure we follow the rules and the regulations. And our Director of our Land Use and Planning Division, our very own Jatan Hortzman. Thank you, Jatan. And I want to recognize our colleagues in city agencies that work closely with our office from City Hall, also providing presentations for tonight's orientation. We want to recognize and thank the Department of City Planning. DCP is here. Let's give them a round of applause. We have the New York City Civic Engagement Commission. Thank you so much to our CEC for being here. The New York City Conflicts of Interest Board. Thank you so much for being here as well. And the New York City Commission on Human Rights. Let's give them a round of applause. Got something. So as we have talked about what the new membership of our community boards look like, you represent a diverse array of culture, diversity, heritage, ethnicities, veterans, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, older adults, young people, different professions, urban planners, architects, designers, lawyers, paralegals, teachers, educators, first responders, social workers, guidance counselors, teachers, parents, grandparents. You represent the Bronx. And it was important for us as we made these decisions to make sure that each of our community boards is truly reflective of the diverse communities that we represent. The different neighborhoods, the residents that come from all over and assimilate here in our city and right here in our borough for a better life, for the American dream, for pathways to prosperity, pathways to college and careers for young people, pathways to the middle class, upward mobility, economic development, making sure that we support good paying jobs and we set families and children up for success and not failure. That is the work that we have all been called to do. And so this diverse array of members of our 12 community boards represent the very best. And so we look forward to working with you. We thank you for your interest in joining your local community boards, because we know everyone is busy. We have demanding schedules. We're raising children, our children, other people's children, the community's children, grandchildren. We're in school. We're going back to school. We have careers. We have a lot on our plates, but we also know that we have a responsibility to do our part within our own communities, being a part of civic organizations and different groups, parks advocates, so that we can take care of our borough. So the most important message that we want to ensure that all of you understand is your input is valuable. It is necessary. It will make a difference. And as the community board meetings have now resumed in person, we need you to show up. Show up for your meetings, right? Yes, that gets a snap. We need you to show up for the meetings. We need to make sure that attendance is primary for all of you, because it's something that we monitor throughout the year. We make sure that you know of the meetings in advance, committees that you will ultimately join. We need to make sure you attend those community meetings, the general meetings, as well as the committee meetings. And the most important thing I say is take your time. Don't feel that as a new board member, you have to join every committee. You don't have to, not right now. Take your time. Adjust to the general meetings, to what it entails at first, and then as your interests are there and are expanding, take your time and then join other committees, because it can get overwhelming and we don't want to overwhelm you. One thing that our office wants to make sure that you all understand is we are a support system for all 12 community boards. We work with the DMs and the chairs, and we support them every way we can, because we are a team. Your success is our success, and our success is your success. We are all in this together. And when we work together, when we join together, united around common priorities, standing in solidarity, we are truly unstoppable as a borough. So I thank you for serving. I thank you for your interest. And most importantly, I'm thanking you in advance for the work that we will do together, collaboratively, no matter whether we're talking about the work in Hunts Point, at the Peninsula, the Metro North work, the work to reimagine the Kingsbridge Armory, transportation equity, the Universal Hip Hop Museum, all of our cultural institutions. Think about what the Bronx has done, and then think about the promise and the potential that we have. We want to make sure that we tell the good stories, so that the Bronx is no longer first in everything bad and last in everything good. But because of your work, we will turn that around and we will change that narrative. So before we do the official oath of office, I want to acknowledge our chairpersons who are here. I want to thank and recognize our Madam Chair of Community Board 7, Yahaira Arias, who's here. Thank you so much for being here. Our Madam Chair of Community Board 8, Julie Reyes. We also have our district managers joining us. Our district manager, Community Board 1, Anthony Jordan. District Manager, Community Board 5, Ken Brown. District Manager, Community Board 6, Rafael Morte. District Manager, Community Board 7, Carla Cabrera Carrera. I love it. District Manager, Community Board 8, Farah Rubin Cole. District Manager, Community Board 12, George Torres. Okay. Any other district managers and board chairs? Yes, we got them all. All right. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Okay. And Kira also wanted me to remind everyone that we have also instituted, which I think everyone can appreciate, a code of conduct. Because as I said, we have a standard, and we want to make sure that that standard is not only met, but it is exceeded. We want you to all do your very best. We operate from a perspective of decency and order and professionalism, and we want to make sure that as you join our community boards and are part of the community board family, that that is always adhered to. All of the existing members that have been reappointed to all 12 boards have also signed these codes of conduct. All of the borough presidents are doing it across the city, so the Bronx is a part of that, and we wanted to make sure that we emphasize the importance of that. So with that, if I could have all of our new community board members, please stand if you are able. This is history. I'm excited. Everyone got their phones out? Everyone ready? Everyone got their phones out? Okay. Camera ready? Okay. We're excited. Okay. I am proud to administer the official oath of office for our community board members of all 12 community boards here in the Bronx. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I please state your name, do hereby pledge and declare that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and the Charter of the City of New York. I will faithfully discharge the duties of member of the community board for the community district within the borough of the Bronx to which I have been appointed. According to the best of my ability. Congratulations, community board members! All right. Okay. Before everyone sits down, I just need a quick X. Can we just throw an X out real quick for the Bronx? Woo! Thank you so much, everyone. You may take your seats. You are officially members of the community board. Okay. Kira, you coming back up? Okay. All right. And as I call Kira Gannon back up to the microphone to continue our program for this evening, I also want to acknowledge our amazing Chief of Staff, Justin Cortez, who's here with us today. And to all of the staff in our community board unit, thank you to Kenny Augusto and Alexis Ruiz for your amazing work. And make sure you all stay connected with our office, follow us, social media, emails, and also Bronx Tourism Council, ilovethebronx.com. Easy. Thank you so much, everyone, and congratulations to each and every one of you.
All right, now we will begin the rest of our program. Congratulations, Rob Miraglia, our General Counsel.
Good evening, everybody. Whoever had me following the borough president this evening, if you could be in my office tomorrow morning, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Thank you, everybody, and congratulations to all of you again. My name is Robert Miraglia, and I am the General Counsel for the Bronx Borough President. I also happen to have served on a community board myself as a member. Sorry. I also happen to, how's that better? Yeah. There we go. How's that? All right. My name is Robert Maraglia. I am the General Counsel for the Bronx Borough President. And I also happen to serve on a community board myself for a short time. So I definitely understand how excited you are and maybe how overwhelmed you might be with a lot of information coming at you in a very quick amount of time, okay? But we're here for you, okay? And don't worry. We're here to make this as easy and enjoyable and fulfilling an experience as we possibly can, okay? Because we have a number of my office colleagues here today speaking, and because we're also joined by many agency colleagues with a significant amount of expertise to speak to you about, I'm just going to give you a very brief and surface run through a couple of issues, okay? Just some tips and pointers to avoid some pitfalls in your community board service. So what does the General Counsel's office do? Well, I manage all of the legal matters. Not much public speaking, as you might be able to tell by my microphone use. But internal and external legal matters for the BP and staff. I also oversee our compliance programs. I supervise our obligations and programs, such as FOIL and EEO. And that we're going to speak about in just a second. And most importantly for this room, I work with your district managers and chairpersons on a variety of board members to better support your work, okay? So the first thing I want to speak about to you tonight is FOIL. How many people have heard of FOIL before? Okay. FOIL stands for Freedom of Information Law. And again, we're just going to do a very surface preview of this, okay? But what it's important for you to know that Freedom of Information Law means basically almost everything we produce in our government capacity, and you are serving in a government capacity now, okay? Albeit unpaid and voluntary. Everything we produce can be obtained by a FOIL request, okay? Now, that means meeting recordings, text messages, emails, anything. Very few things can be denied. Very few things can be redacted, okay? Generally, FOIL requests will be handled by your district manager and chair, but who is covered by FOIL? That's when everyone here raises their hands, because it's everybody in this room pretty much, okay? Let me give you an example here. So you're discussing a contentious development project in your community, and you're speaking on your personal email to your colleague. Is that FOILable? It sure is, right? How about if you're texting, you're using your personal phone, but you're talking about the developer, you're talking about the project. Is that FOILable? It absolutely is. How many people are thrilled with the idea of their personal devices being searched through or their personal information commingling with business? Raise your hands. Me neither. Me neither. So I'm going to give you just a couple quick tips on this one, okay, to please keep in mind and jot it down if you can't remember it, okay? Number one, very easy, be mindful of your position at all times. In and out of the community board meetings, always. Okay? What you do and say now has a very different meaning than it did before you were sworn in just a minute ago. You are held to a higher standard now, and you also have some new official rules to follow. Okay? That's number one. Just be mindful. Number two, avoid commingling. Don't mix your personal and business conversations. What's the best way to do that? Super easy trick. Create an email address just for your community board work. That's it, okay? It's free, it's simple, it takes a minute, and it keeps everything separate and clean, okay? Don't do community business on your cell phone. Don't do it via text. Keep it where it belongs and be careful of what you're saying at all times. Good? Great. The nice thing about creating an email address specifically for your community board work, aside from keeping it separate and clean for FOIL searches possibly, is that it kind of makes you a little more conscious before you hit that send button. You know exactly what email you're logged into, and you know what you're looking at and what you should be thinking, where your mind should be before you hit that button. Okay, so please, take my advice on that one. It'll save you a lot of trouble down the road. Another thing I wanted to chat with you about is EEO. We love acronyms in the law. Anyone know what EEO is? Raise your hand. Yeah, equal employment opportunity. So many of you, I'm sure, have this in your private careers as well and have experienced this or have a division. Equal employment opportunity, or EEO, is a general term that we use for a very large collection of laws on the federal, state, and city level. And these are employment and discrimination protections for workers, okay? So how does that affect you? I'm sure we have folks here. Mr. Torres, where are you, Human Rights, I think is with us today. I'm sure is going to touch on some EEO sensitive matters later with you in more depth. What you should know now from our office, okay, is that we have the unique position or role to handle EEO complaints from you. Okay, so for community boards, our office will handle those complaints. We take them in confidentially, okay? As we receive them, we investigate them, and we take the appropriate action. Often that's in coordination with your chairperson, if necessary, and depending on the situation, but we're the ones that are going to handle that, okay? So what you really need to know now, rather, is that although you're going to learn more about what a complaint may be, we're here to support you. And we take these complaints and our obligation to investigate and enforce these complaints very seriously. Please understand that, okay? All of our EEO information is posted on our website. You could log on anytime and get that. We have a specific email just for community boards, and everything is confidential, okay? Hopefully it's never needed, but it's there, and we're there for you if you do need us, okay? Now, a great way to avoid, and a great segue into my last brief topic, and a great way to avoid EEO issues is that code of conduct the borough president just mentioned earlier. How many of you have read that code of conduct? Raise your hand. I need to see a couple more hands, hopefully. A copy of it is in your folder today. If you haven't signed that document and reviewed it, please do so right away, okay? A lot of work went into making this code of conduct, and for very good reason, all right? Now, as I mentioned earlier, you're held to a different standard, okay? Inside and outside your community board meetings, this code of conduct that I hear all ruffling through, hopefully not to look through for the first time, is it lays out in plain language exactly what's expected of you. These are our expectations, and we do enforce these expectations. There is no three-strike rule. We take this, I can't stress enough how seriously we take this, okay? Please do read it, please sign it, abide by it. Many of you are going to be working on issues as community board members that are going to be controversial. Again, it could be a development, it could be a site plan, it could be anything that comes before you. Sometimes it's going to get heated, okay? You need, again, to be mindful and remember who you are. Many of these projects are going to evoke strong feelings and emotion from the public, from your own colleagues, and maybe even from you, okay? Be mindful of your role, please. Think of this code of conduct, post it right in front of you when you're speaking at community boards, okay? It's always a good thing. Overall, just be kind, please. Be thoughtful, be professional, both to the public and to each other, okay? Our community will be better for it, all right? So those are just a basic few things. Again, your service as a community board member is so greatly appreciated, truly. This is a particularly impressive group that I've had the pleasure of seeing many of your resumes and applications for. I'm so excited to be working with you all. And please lean on us if you need us, and we're here to support you, okay? Congratulations again. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations again. So my name is Chetan Horseman. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson. And I've got a few slides I want to go through. And I will share this presentation with you all afterwards, so you don't have to take notes or anything. So there's a few resources as well that I'm going to go into. So first I want to just introduce you to our team. My team of the Planning and Development is made up of 4 members right now. Myself, the Director. We have Sam Goodman, our Senior Planner. J.M. Vasquez, our Senior Planner in the Topography team, as well as Dan Donovan, our Topographic Consultant. And I wanted to just bring these 4 names up to you because, one, if you ever reach out to us, you know who you're talking to now, right? Another reason is we're also staffing up. The Borough President recognizes how important land use policy, planning, all these different pieces are to the community and the Bronx as a large. And this is an opportunity for her to say, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm staffing, I'm providing resources for you all. So I want to make sure that you all hear that we are here for you, as was iterated with the Borough President. So what are some of the things that we do? There's kind of 2 different units in my team. There's the topographic team, which, while you're thinking about the map and the city of New York, there's actually several different portions to that. There's like the tax map, where it's like, where are all the properties at, you know, your commercial, your residential, your manufacturing. But then you have all the city streets. And actually, our office is in charge of the city map, which is where all the city streets and having that, basically the topography piece of that. Issuing house numbers. So all of the addresses in the borough actually go through our office where we sign off on them before they would go through the process. As well as managing and creating graphics, maps, and other documents for the community. As well as the planning and development team. And the planning and development team, we do a number of things. We advise, set policy on land use matters. We do ULURP, so the Uniform Land Use Review Process. When there's a project that enters public review and needs a rezoning or some sort of discretionary action, that it goes through this formal public process, the borough president plays an important role. But before it comes to us, actually the community boards have a role where there's a 60-day period, and it's actually really important for you all to make sure that you hold the public hearings, have those recommendations, and get those to us in time, because as soon as the community board piece is over, it comes to us, and we actually take all of those recommendations under advisement. And if you look at our past recommendations, a lot of times the things that the community board stated went right into the borough president's recommendations as well. So it's really important that we're hearing from you, that you're having these meetings, that you're getting that input directly from you all. Partnering with the capital programs team on budget allocations. So the borough president has a pool of money that she is able to provide resources for, and it's one of the roles that we partner with the capital programs team. Providing technical assistance to organizations, developers, agencies, and the general public. As the BP stated, we're looking to raise the standards and provide resources and support for you all. And this is just one of the opportunities that we are able to do that for you. As well as doing just general research and reports. Every year we have an annual development report that our team brings out, which shows the amount of investment that we've seen in the borough, as well as strategic policy reports and other documents that are created. The strategic policy report is a document that came out last year in September, and it really lays out a lot of the policies information that the borough president stands by and has already been advocating for different projects. I also just wanted to call out just a couple of major projects that are happening in the borough, because I think this is actually a really exciting time for our borough with some of the things that are being looked at and rethought about. It's no longer just status quo, we're going to do certain things. It's like now we're getting community buy-in. We're looking at the Cross Bronx Expressway and studying that for the first time, tying in all types of environmental justice issues and social equity issues and trying to actually address that. The Kingsbridge Armory Vision Plan and RFP that's going to be released soon. The Harlem River Waterfront Greenway Study that goes across the entire West Bronx. The Metro North Expansion and Neighborhood Study, getting 4 new Metro North stations. This is happening. And then the studies around that in order to make sure that there's adequate support and transient-oriented development for the long-term future. Local Law 97 rollout. A lot of you are probably aware of this with the housing component. How are we going to become an economic or a sustainable city where we're carbon neutral in the future? And then I just want to flag a couple things here. This is for more information, but some of these City of Yes initiatives that you all are going to actually be voting on as they come out to you very soon, actually. One thing I would recommend, because it's a lot of information and starting to understand it now, so attending both of these sessions, I highly, highly recommend. Tuesday on the 12th, not this Tuesday, next Tuesday, from 7 to 8:30. It's remote. You can just log in, YouTube, watch it, please. I definitely recommend for both of those. But if you actually log in, you can actually ask questions as well. So, think about what you want to do and how you want to interact. But really, all these things are to show that we're collaborating with everyone, internally, externally, agencies, community boards, everyone, in order to make sure that the policies that we're advancing will benefit the residents of the Bronx. So then how are we helping you all directly? We act as a go-to resource with community boards, making sure that you have what you need, whether it be in housing, transportation, land use, ULURP, parks, whatever you need. If you need us to help, talk to agencies or, set up meetings, coordinate, whatever that is, have a conversation with us. We'll figure out what you need, and working with your district managers and your groups. The point is that we're here for you. And as the BP also stated, we're basically a support system for the community boards and want to make sure that that's clear to you all. We confer with community boards on development policies, neighborhood plans and site plans, et cetera. So again, another resource, as well as working with other people within our team, Kiara Gannon, who is so fantastic and is now the director of our community boards. So I'm not going to speak to this. This is just several resources that is really useful and valuable. But the first one, this main planning page, it has the Borough President's Annual Development Report and a number of other recommendations in Borough President Euler. It has the Borough President's Strategic Policy Report. And then the next three are actually different types of maps, which are really useful depending on what you want to see. City map has everything from police precincts and all kinds of district lines. Zola is great for land use and other land use, city planning related pieces. New York Street Map has all the street maps and information for alterations and other things that have happened over time. And then ZAP is actually where, when there's a project that's going to go through public review, this is where all the documents are going to be saved. And there will be additional trainings and information on this. But just be aware that all these things can be accessed to you at any time. And so we want to make sure that you also know where you can find the resources individually, even if we're not available in the moment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yafi Schaefer-Soul and Manny Lagares from the Department of City Planning, who are going to continue.
Good evening. My name is Manny Lagares. I'm with the Department of City Planning. I'm here today with one of my colleagues, Yafi Schaefer-Soul. And City Planning has a staff of approximately 300 staff. And we do strategic planning, neighborhood planning, studies, and also we are very focused on the Euler process, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. And I just want to introduce Yafi in case she has a few words to say.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Congratulations on joining your community boards. Manny and I have been working together for a couple months, and all of us at City Planning, Bronx Borough Office, love to hear from you and love to work with you on making the neighborhoods the best they can be. So do not hesitate to reach out, and we hope to be communicating with you guys soon.
Okay, so we'll start with the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure presentation that I have here. I'm not used to seeing it from this point. I'm usually in front of the computer with these slides, but if you see me struggling, it's just trying to get my bearings on it. Let me just hit here, make sure, okay. So I'm here to give you the overview of the process. The ULURP is an acronym for Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. I'm going to speak about what it is, what's involved in terms of going through the procedure, which is an application, and who are the participants in the process. Now, ULURP started back in 1977 in order to have the communities have more of a say-so, or a say-so in planning, because before 1977, it was handled by the Board of Estimate, which was the mayor, and the 5 borough presidents. So there was not any community input. So with this change, you have the community boards involved in this very important procedure. And again, what you need to remember here is that it's a review of land. The word uniform is that we treat all the applications the same. Now, there are 2 ways for development in the city of New York. One is as of right, and as of right means that the development that is being proposed complies with the zoning resolution as well as the building code. And the agency that's in charge of or has jurisdiction over the as-of-right development is the Department of Buildings. So a developer that's interested in just building something, let's say if he wants to build in a low-density area, where you're allowed to have 1, 2 family homes, and he or she is thinking about constructing a 7, 8-story building, that's definitely not allowed and would be the discretionary action, which is handled under the ULURP process. And I do have the Board of Standards and Appeals mentioned there. because they also handle land use applications. In this case, it's an appeal because not every lot on every block is rectangular. Some have are triangular or irregular. Some have a below ground stream on it. Others have rock outcroppings, which make it very difficult to develop. So you can't go through the ULURP process with that. You need an appeal, and the Board of Standards and Appeals is where you go to if you want to develop a property. Okay, I meant discretionary action was there before, and the definition of discretionary is it has to be reviewed by the City Planning Commission or the Board of Standards and Appeals. So either one of those bodies reviews it. Now, here is a list of all the actions that are part of the ULURP process. The first one, and you might be very familiar with it, is a zoning map amendment, which most of you know as a rezoning. That's where, again, a developer wants to, I mentioned the example, build a high-rise building in a low-density zone. So they come in for a rezoning, and you as board members will be participants. The applicant will have to go to your board, describe what the project is, and you have your input into this project via the ULURP process. The second one, well, I'm going to read down, the second one, Urban Development Action Areas, which HPD. Disposition of city-owned property, which is the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, have jurisdiction over that. And I don't know if you know, but the city cannot sell land directly to an entity or an individual. It has to go through the process. Changes to the city map, mapping or demapping. Jutan had in his slide, there was I saw the street map reference to that, and the city map basically shows you the streets, blocks, open spaces, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say if you have a developer that's interested in increasing the square footage of his or her development, and there is a street that's possibly at a dead end, nobody's going to use that portion, that developer can purchase either half or the entire street in order to get more floor area on which to build. Now, you as board members will have a say, so okay, we're going to allow it or no. The next action here, acquisition of real property by the city, site selection for capital projects. I'm just going to read through because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Combination acquisition and site selection by the city, revocable consents, requests for proposals, and other solicitations of franchise and major concessions, housing and urban renewal plans pursuant to city and state laws. I'll just mention something on that. Urban renewal plans ceased, I would say maybe 2 decades ago. However, some of them have not been built to the full potential. In other words, there's square footage that buildings can go up, and these urban renewal plans control how high the building would be, how much square footage it can have, how much open space and parking can be provided. So that's, that action refers to that. It's not a new one that's being done. It's basically referring to the past. And the last one is sanitary or waterfront landfills. Okay, so in order to go through the process, you have to file an application. It could be 18 years old plus, have money, because you're going to need it. Because some of these actions, you do have to pay fees. And if you are taking several blocks, it's going to cost you more because everything, the fees are determined in terms of the floor area. The more floor area, the more you're going to pay, just for the fees for processing. This slide here, and it's very important that I mention it now because one of the speakers mentioned the Freedom of Information legislation, the FOIL. And in order to FOIL something, you have to have an ID number. And ULURP applications receive an ID number. This application, as you can see on the slide, 160-250 ZMX is the ID number. So if you need to FOIL something, instead of just having an address or a street and a cross street, this is what you need to get access to that file from us. But anyway, let me explain the significance. The number is telling you, the first two numbers, the fiscal year that this application was filed. The next four numbers indicate the sequence in which it was filed, that city planning received it. So in other words, in 2016, this was 250th application. The ZM is the zoning map amendment that I spoke about, the rezoning, and the X, of course, for the borough of the Bronx. So that's what that number means, so that when you have an opportunity to look at an application, I always recommend to board members that if you're on a board and there's a ULURP item, ask the front office for a copy of the application so that you can read it and even visit the site if you want. Okay, so you're looking at an LR form, and what's highlighted is it's going to indicate who's proposing the action and what is being requested. In addition to that, there's the contact information for the applicant in terms of phone numbers, et cetera, what the zoning for the area is, and in the bottom, the block in the bottom states that what is being requested is a zoning map amendment through the mandatory inclusionary housing program. Okay, this is also another portion that goes into the application package. This is the project description, which is a detailed narrative description. Sometimes, on the average, I would say it's at least 5 pages. Sometimes they're longer depending on the project. But on the right, you can see that within the body, the developer is proposing affordable housing on a 24,000 square foot site. He or she is thinking about a residential building, 12 stories in height. Why are the actions requested? Now, if you look on the right, you see you see the M12 to R7X. They're requesting a zoning map change from manufacturing to residential. M12 to R7X C14, manufacturing to mixed use. Mixed use is a residential and commercial on the ground floor. And an M13 to R7X. So that's what's being requested. And the projects for affordable housing, and if you look at the bottom where it says IE, why can't the applicant build their project as of right? The reason for that, if manufacturing zones, you're not allowed to have housing. It's prohibited unless it's a special area that allows it. So that is the reason that the applicant cannot do it as of right. This is a very important map. It's the area map. It gives you a lot of information. And from this map, you can see what the zoning is. Now, in terms of zoning, R is residential, C is commercial, M is manufacturing. So you can see by the R71, R72 is that there are a few blocks that are residentially zoned. The M1, M12, those are manufacturing. And just by also gives you the land use, the colors, the purple indicates that it's an industrial zone. So in this instance, you have a developer that wants to extend the R7s. Even though it's R71, R72, they're going for an R7X, which allows you to build even higher. They're going into a manufacturing district, and what you see that's bounded by the black dotted lines, that's the project area. The area within that that's in red is the development site. That's where they're proposing to construct the building. R7X, get anywhere from 9, 10-story building. Let me see what other information you get from this map. You see in blue, and those are the institutions, could be a school, firehouse, police station. Anything in red is commercial. And then you see the areas that are hashed. Those are commercial overlays, because in residential districts, you can, for mixed use, you can have residential on the bottom, commercial on the bottom, residential on the top, or an either-or situation, either residential or commercial. Now, I just want to take an aside here from the ULURP because in order for ULURP application to move forward in terms of review, you need an environmental review. Now, we have at City Planning what is called EARD, the Environmental Assessment and Review Division, and that's what they do. They review applications. The simplest one is an environmental assessment statement, and the most difficult one is environmental impact statement, the EIS. And what is being looked at, what is being studied here is, will there be any significant adverse effect from this project into the area where it's being built? And by the area, it's not only the development side, it's the project area. It's an area within 600 feet of the proposed project itself. Now, the determinations that have to be made are whether it's a negative deck, a conditional negative deck, or a positive deck. The negative declaration is good because it's saying that this proposed project is not going to have an impact on the surrounding area or the neighborhood. The conditional negative deck means that, yes, it might have one or two. It might be noise, vibration, but something that can be dealt with. If it's noise and you're near a railroad track, 35 decibel window wall attenuation, that should be enough to cure the problem. The positive deck is the worst because it can become very expensive for the developer. Let's take, for example, Yankee Stadium. That was done over 10 years ago, and that involved many actions. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the actions that I read from the list are involved there. So it was huge. The paperwork on that went into hundreds and hundreds of pages. And of course, the cost to the developer was exorbitant. So that's the worst case scenario because you have to mitigate all the potential hazardous impact that are happening. And again, I mentioned the word hazardous. It could be hazardous in terms of gasoline below the ground. It could be noise. And other factors are parking. You're going to need parking. Also, how would you be disrupting the character of the area by this new development that's going up? So these are things that are looked at by our Environmental Assessment and Review Division when a developer is proposing. The developer is not doing this on its own or her own. We're checking to make sure that everything is correct. Okay, what does the full public review process look like and who is involved? I just want to say that it's a series of clocks. So at every stage of the process where the reviewers, which will be the community board, the borough board is only in instances where an action involves more than one community district. Let's say if you have District 11 and District 12, and there's a huge rezoning that encompasses both areas, has to go to the borough board. The borough president is involved, the city council, city planning commission, very important, city council, and the mayor. Okay, now here is the process itself. I want to start off with the certification, and I'll give myself as an example for a project going through the process. I'm the liaison to Community Board number 9 and Community Board number 10. So that if there's an action within one of those districts, I'm the one that's going to read the application, go to the field, and present this to the City Planning Commission. The Department of City Planning is staff to the department, to the City Planning Commission. So certification will occur at a review session of the City Planning Commission. Again, I'll present. The commissioners will have questions. And at the end, the Department of City Planning is going to say certified. And the reason is the Department of City Planning and not the City Planning Commission is because the chair of the commission is also the director of the Department of City Planning. So our department is certifying the application. Now, certification means that a project is complete and that it has all the information that's going to be needed by the reviewers. It does not mean that it was certified. If you see the bottom of the slide, it doesn't mean that it's certified. I've been to a few board meetings where items were discussed, and the community, in one instance, was in uproar about a development that was being proposed for their area. And the persons that attended the meeting were under the impression that this was approved. So I, in my role as a city planner and the liaison to this board, got up and just explained everything to them. I spoke a little about the ULURP process. And at the end of the session, I was surprised. I had people come over to me and say, thank you. We were told that this was approved. It can't be approved if it's certified. The community board is the first step in the process, and then the others follow. Now, the community board has 60 calendar days in which to review an application, okay? 60 calendar days, and you can see at the bottom of this slide, it's not, that's the next slide. But I just want to say one more thing. The certification, let's say if it starts the ULURP clock, okay? So if we had an application certified on August 1st, on August 10th, the clock starts to tick. Okay, the community boards will have 60 days to review the application. There's a note in the bottom here, because community boards, you guys have to go on recess, right? July and August, you want a vacation, etc. So we have a note here that boards will have 90 days for review and hearings for applications that were certified in June, and 75 days for applications certified between July 1 and July 15. Okay? That's to ensure that you have an opportunity to review something that was done while you are out. Okay, things that the community board will do: they'll invite the developer of the application to come before the land use committee and present the application. The community board will also advertise and hold a public hearing. And your role as a community board member is to see, how this fulfills your board's, vision for the community. And not only the boards, but your area. You're with a particular area that you want to represent. Okay, the community board will do, with this application, they'll vote electronically through the zoning application portal, either approve, disapprove, recommend with modifications. And this is an example of an item that was voted on by community board number 12, and I presented this item to the commission. The community board voted 26 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions to approve the application. The next online will be the borough president. The borough president has 30 days in which to review an application. The borough president is not required to hold a public hearing, but as far as I know, the Bronx borough president always holds a public hearing. Next on the agenda here is the City Planning Commission. Remember, I presented initially. Now it's coming back to the commission from the community board and the borough president. And my job is to give a summary of what happened at the community board and what were the recommendations and the vote. Next step here is the city council. City council has 50 days, 20 days in which to decide, elect to review an application, because they don't receive everything automatically. There are 4 items that they do receive automatically, and that'll be a zoning map amendment, the rezoning, also a zoning text amendment, which, by the way, is a non-ULURP item, but it's so important because it affects 59 community districts throughout the city, and publicly owned properties within the city, they look at those automatically. And the remainder, if you remember from what I read before, disposition of city-owned property, the HPD, UDAP designation, project approval and dispositions, and others, special permits, site selections, etc., they elect to review this. Now, the reason that I left this for the end. There's a power that the borough president has that's called the triple no. The triple no is when there is an action being requested, such as a rezoning, for example, where the community board says, no, 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 that's too much housing for my area, we don't want it, okay? The borough president looks at it, reviews, no, I agree with the community board, no, we don't want it either. But when it comes to the City Planning Commission says, we approve it, or we approve it with conditions, okay? Now, in order for that power to be used by the borough president, the community board has to advertise those public hearings. If you don't advertise the public hearings within 5 days, including the date of the public hearing, you can forget about your recommendation. If you take more than 60 days to review an application, you know, we're not talking about the ones for the summer, but if you take 70 or take an extra month, you can forget about that also. So also, each board will have a certain amount of, I believe it's from 25 to 50 board members. Quorum is considered as 50% plus one. If you don't have a quorum, let's say there were 13 people there, and you have 25 members, that invalidates the triple no. So it's always very important to keep that in mind. You gotta be on top of it, especially as new board members. New board members, they're aware of this, but it's always good because you're getting this orientation now, and you say, wait, we heard Manny say at this meeting that if we don't have a quorum, then our recommendation is going to not mean much at all. Okay? Let me see. And the final is the mayor. The mayor is not required to review anything unless it's a big project. Let's say if the Yankee Stadium, for some reason, were to need him to approve it, then the mayor will get involved. Okay? Now let me see. I spoke about the ULURP applications. So here are the non-ULURP applications. I just want to explain that to you. Their ID number starts with an N for non-ULURP. Basically, non-ULURP means there's no clock. Non-ULURPs, you don't have to worry about 60 days or whatever it is. There is no clock. And of course, it's the same number that I used before. And these are basically minor actions. And again, the exception of a zoning text amendment. Zoning text amendment, and one of the speakers mentioned the upcoming text amendment for economic opportunity. That's a biggie. So that's how important it is. We allow it to mimic the ULURP process, and even we add a little to that. If you can't get it within 60 days, okay, give it to us in 5 days more. You know, we give the community boards time. So if you see important items like this, we'll be presenting these items to you. Always impress upon your board. Please get our recommendation to city planning, because boards do forget. But anyway, that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Are there any questions? Yes? Okay, this information that I'm going over right now, we have on our website, which is nyc.gov/planning. It's a very user-friendly website, and you should be able to find it. In addition to that, I'm going to have a presentation for the Cross Bronx Expressway that's going to be recorded, which basically goes over the material that I went over today. And I've also done presentations to some of the community boards, and if you feel that your board needs, let's say, an orientation, just mention it to them. I'll drop by and present. So there. Okay, great. Yes, any questions I'll take at the end. Okay? All right. Thank you.
I'm going to call up Anthony Carrion from the Civic Engagement Commission.
Firstly, let me say good evening, everybody, and congratulations on being newly minted community board members. I'll just pull up my presentation here. First off, I just want to say I am very happy to be here with you all today. I'm speaking as a former community board member myself, 6 years, and 5 years of that as a chair of Landmarks and Parks Committee. So believe me when I say, as newly minted community board members, it's really an enormous privilege that you have. You're all community experts, and now you have in an official capacity to be advocates and public servants. So it's very exciting, and make the most of it. It's a huge honor. So my name is Anthony Carrion. I'm a community engagement specialist for Manhattan and the Bronx for the New York City Civic Engagement Commission. So we're a brand new commission, and I'm just going to quickly go over who we are and some of the initiatives and services we provide. So if you voted in 2018, it was a ballot initiative to create the Civic Engagement Commission. I voted for it, so now I work for the agency I voted for back in 2018. And our mission is pretty simple, promote democracy and enhance civic participation for all New Yorkers. Simple enough. We have a couple of areas of focus that I'm going to touch on. The people's money, which many of you might be familiar already. Democracy NYC. I'll talk about how we specifically reach out to community boards and assist. The People's Bus, Pulsite Language Assistance, and finally, partnerships in education. So first off, the people's money. Very quickly, it's a way for all New Yorkers who are 11 years and older and who live in New York City to spend $5 million of the city's budget. So this is separate from City Council. This is a project specifically for expense projects. City Council does capital projects. So if you want more information, you would like workshops, please reach out to me. I'm always available. We're going to be starting idea generation, the first phase of this initiative, on October 10th. So you'll be receiving more information from your district manager's office very soon. We have what's known as the People's Bus. You may have seen this at some events throughout New York City, especially the Bronx. It's kind of a community hub, a democracy incubator, we like to call it. And for the people's money, we kind of dressed it up. We have an artist collective, and it became Tippy the Money Monster. So this was at Bronx Week right here, this photo. So you'll be seeing more of that throughout the year as we perform our services and initiatives. So for community boards and specifically on our website, we have trainings available that you can access. Here are some of them here listed. But essentially what we do is partnerships with district managers, board chairs to conduct trainings and workshops on an as-needed basis. So tailored to your specific needs. And so you'll have this slide deck available. Our community board advisor is Benjamin Solitaire. We also do Pulsite Language Assistance. So we offer interpretation services on Election Day and early voting period. We have Democracy NYC. We do Days of Actions, phone banking, text banking, and in early March we do student voter registration drives in all high schools throughout New York City. So more on that coming very soon. And finally, as you can see there, a picture of me on the left-hand side, community partnerships and education. So we do workshops on participatory budgeting, civics 101, government structure, voting, voter rights, anything you could think of. So if you need any educational workshops, I'm your guy. Also tabling at events throughout the Bronx and Manhattan. These are some of the services we provide. So partnerships in education, that's QR code where you can request us to present or to table. This is our entire outreach team, including our director and our outreach specialists according to each borough. And I just want to thank you guys for your time again, and congratulations on being community board members.
And now we'll have Roy Kashi from the Conflict of Interest Board.
Good evening, everyone, and once again, congratulations to you all, and welcome aboard. My name is Roy Koshi, and I'm from the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board. I don't have like a PowerPoint presentation or anything, but hopefully the power of the conflicts of interest law will inspire you anyway, verbally. So about us, we are actually an independent non-mayoral oversight agency, and we are responsible for the conflicts of interest law, which is a law that's set forth in the City Charter of New York, and it applies to all city employees, which would include all community board members actually as well. So that's what my little presentation here is about tonight. Our agency, the way that in our responsibility of upholding the city's conflicts of interest law, we do that through education, offering advice, and then whenever somebody violates the law, we have an enforcement unit. So obviously I want to keep y'all away from our enforcement unit. Very nice group of people, but you know, they get involved when a violation has occurred, so we want to avoid that. So because we have such a limited amount of time, I do just want to emphasize that after today, if you ever need us, I know that our plain language guide is in your folders, so our contact information is on the second page. So if you ever need us, please reach out to us. And specifically, what I want to emphasize is our advice unit, which is, I would say, is the most important part of our agency, because this is the part of the unit, the agency that's tasked with helping city employees avoid any conflicts of interest at all or resolve them should they ever arise. So I do just want to invite you all to hold on to our contact information once we're done today. But let's talk about the law and how it applies to community board members and what you can and cannot do. So basically, you know, obviously you've been selected for this important role in city government and this important role in your community. And obviously, also, you've been selected because you do have interests and you do have connections to your community. Great. Basically, what this law is designed to prevent from happening is the intermingling between one's outside private interests and one's public service. And so a few of our speakers have already spoken to that theme already, so I just want to emphasize that as well. And so what I want to talk about today is 3 actions that are very common for community board members, and they are voting, discussion, and disclosure. So let me just start with voting, because you will be doing a lot of that, and it's incredibly important, obviously. So basically, the law would say that community board members are prohibited from voting on any matters that involve any direct financial benefit to themselves, their spouses, or anyone that they are financially associated with. And so ourselves, that's kind of obvious right there. You know, our spouses or domestic partners, we can't vote on a matter that would benefit them as well. And then when I say financially associated, that can mean a lot of things. That can mean my business partner. That can mean a client that I represent for pay on the outside. That can mean somebody who owes a ton of money to me, or somebody I owe a lot of money to. And really, like, at the end of the day, you know, even if I'm voting in a fair manner, you know, even if I've, like, you know, looked through everything and I'm actually voting with my heart and I'm voting from a place of integrity about how to serve my community, if I'm voting on behalf of myself or these parties, it's still a conflict of interest, because to the wider public, it's always going to look like I'm voting for my own interests. And so we want to avoid that from happening. So let me just give you a few examples. It's not limited to this, but I'll just give you a few examples. So if I'm a restaurant owner, for instance, and I'm also a community board member, can I vote on approving a liquor license application for my own restaurant? What do you think? No. No, because, you know, there's a direct economic gain. There's a direct financial incentive for me to vote on that. Now, what are the other 2 actions I mentioned? Disclosure and discussion. So can I discuss, can I participate in discussions on this liquor license matter? I can, but something I have to do before I enter into any discussion about this particular vote is that I have to disclose my ownership in this restaurant. So again, like the theme of this law, and the theme of tonight also, is transparency. It's about upholding the public trust through transparency. And so that's what you want to keep in mind. It's just, if I have a financial or a potential financial gain for any matter before my community board, if I'm going to enter into discussions about that, I do have to disclose my financial connection to it, or my familial connection to it. So basically, like, yeah, so basically we are not only prohibited from like voting on matters that involve, say, a business that we run, like if I ran a restaurant, but also community board members are prohibited from voting on matters basically that involve any sort of financial gain whatsoever. So if there is an employer, like if I'm employed by a company that has a matter before the community board, like let's say that I'm employed by a construction firm or an architecture firm, or I'm employed by, City Bike or something, I can't vote on those matters either. Can I discuss those matters that these companies that employ me have before the community board? I sure can, but what do I have to do before I discuss it? Yes, perfect. Oh my gosh, I trust you all so much right now. So yeah, basically that not only applies to, private employment, this applies also to city employment. So it's very common for community board members to also be employed by the city of New York at a city agency. And so basically that would include, if I'm employed, say, by the Department of Education, maybe I'm a teacher at the DOE, and I'm on the community board, I still can't vote on matters involving the DOE. And it's the same exact process. I can discuss, but before I discuss, I have to disclose my employment with the DOE on any of those matters. And the reason for that, just to explain why that rule exists, is that we don't even want the appearance that, obviously, like, we don't want the appearance that a community board member is trying to, financially benefit from their vote, even if it's like another city agency. But we also don't want it to look like a city agency is perhaps forcing their agenda through a community board. So, as much as we want to maintain a bit of a firewall between the community board and outside private entities, we want to maintain that with other city agencies as well, because we really do want the community board to be trusted as a very independent entity that is voting on what's best for their community. Nonprofits as well. Nonprofits, volunteer organizations. Basically, if I'm just a volunteer, this doesn't apply, but if I am employed by a nonprofit, again, I cannot vote on matters that nonprofit might have before my community board. Can I discuss those matters? Yes. What do I have to do before I discuss that matter? Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, that is the word of the day. Rest in peace, Pee Wee Herman. I want to scream when we say disclose now. Okay, but and that's another situation where, like, let's say I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit. Like, so if I take a salary from the nonprofit, obviously, I can't vote on that. But even if I'm on the board of directors of a nonprofit and I'm not taking a salary, I still have a fiduciary duty to that organization. So that would prevent me from voting on matters that come before my community board. Okay, so I trust y'all about voting, disclosure, and discussion. So I want to talk about quorum really quickly. So if there's a situation where, so obviously you know that there's a quorum that is needed to act upon a matter before a community board. You need a majority of people there. Now, if there's a community board member who cannot vote due to a conflict of interest, like any of these examples that I just gave, in order to basically, a quorum is still considered in effect. So they're still considered present to maintain a quorum. So basically, like if there are 50 board members and there are 26 members that are needed to have a quorum, if there are two board members who cannot vote on the matter before the community board because of their own personal conflicts of interest, the quorum still exists. But now only 24 members are entitled to vote, and so the majority needed to pass the matter is now down to 13 instead of 14. So basically what I'm saying is that the quorum still exists, but those two community board members, or however many, just can't vote, but the vote can proceed. Just want to highlight that real quick. And then chairing and serving on committees and subcommittees. I just want to touch on this. Borough President Gibson, of course, touched on this. So, yeah, you may be assigned or you may be appointed to committees or subcommittees while you're serving on the community board. So, again, the rules apply of, if you have a conflict of interest or there is some sort of financial connection or familial connection, you can't vote, but you can discuss and disclose. Now, chairing a committee is a little different. So, if you are chairing a committee or subcommittee, if it's going to be a situation where, you're going to have personal matters coming before that committee, you just can't chair that committee. So basically, you can serve on any committee and you can discuss and disclose and, vote or not vote depending on the conflict of interest that exists. But if you're, like, let's say, let me just put it this way. If there's an educational committee and I'm employed by the Department of Education, I cannot chair that committee. And the reason for that is if the chair of a committee has an outside financial interest that is possibly coming to their committee to be voted on, and then I have to step down all the time. In essence, I'm basically not able to serve as a chairperson. So basically, that's the rule there where, if it's going to be a situation where the committee is going to be seeing a lot of different matters that involve me personally, I just can't be the chair of that committee because I'd be kind of ineffective at that point. Okay. And then also the chairperson of the entire community board, I just want to highlight this. Certainly, like I was saying before, everybody has a variety of interests in their community. So basically, in that situation, if there's a chairperson who has an interest in a firm or an organization that has a matter before the community board, whenever that comes up, that chairperson just has to step down for that meeting, basically. So you just want to keep that in mind. Okay, so a few more rules. Representing private clients. So basically, community board members cannot personally represent private clients or any parties presenting a project or proposal for consideration before the community board. So if I happen to be a community board member and I work for an architecture firm and one of my clients is proposing a new building in my community, I just cannot represent that client back at my own community board while I'm serving for that on the community board. That's kind of a very obvious conflict of interest right there. Staffing, I just want to keep this in mind here. Close relatives and business associates cannot serve on the staff of the community members board. And that would be not only spouses and domestic partners, but that's like parents, children, siblings, and then those other parties that I mentioned, anyone that we have a financial bind or obligation to, whether that's my business partner or somebody who owes a ton of money to me, Gifts. We have a valuable gifts rule in our city charter law, but I just want to highlight something, just how it applies to community board members. Don't take anything, do not accept any goods or services of value because of your community board membership. So I'll give you this example. Let's say that there's a restaurateur who has a liquor license and it's up for a vote before my community board. So let's say that I'm a community board member and this restaurateur just tells me, hey, you know what, I know you're voting on my liquor license. Tell you what, on Friday night, why don't you come down to my restaurant and drinks and food are on the house. Do you think I should accept that? No, not at all. Now, let me contrast this with, again, acknowledging the reality that community board members are members of your community. If I happen to be longtime friends with this restaurateur, and let's just say that I pay for my own drinks and they buy me a third round back, like the buyback round, that may not be a conflict of interest. But if it is all of a sudden my new best friend, this restaurateur, that's more of a problem. Basically, the point is that if you know for a fact that you're being offered something because of your membership, don't take it, basically. And then political activity. So community board members, you can run for elected office while serving on the community board, but you do have to resign from your community board if you do win your election and assume elective office. And then something super important, no use of city time, resources, or your community board position to advance your political campaign. So that really has to be separate from your community board service. And then in general, you are not allowed to use community board resources or community board time for any outside personal activity. So let's say that I run that architecture firm, I can't use the community board printer to print up flyers or print up materials for the architecture firm. Let me see if I'm missing anything. Post-employment, we have a post-employment restriction in the law, and I just want to highlight something where basically this also applies to community board members where basically former city employees cannot reappear back at their former city agency for one entire year, basically, to do business on behalf of their new employer. So a former community board member could not represent, say, again, a private client or a new project back at the former community board for 1 year. But that's only for basically compensated communication. It doesn't apply to ministerial matters, and it also doesn't apply, of course, you can attend your former community board meetings anytime you want. Okay, so that is about it for me, and I just want to highlight that our attorneys of the day, on the second page of your, was it the second or the third? It's the last page, actually, of your handout. That's our phone number, and you can either give us a call or go to our website and contact us that way if you ever have any questions. And our attorneys are really well-versed in community board issues. So that's it for me. Please hold on to our contact information and reach out to us. Thank you all so much, and welcome aboard. Thank you. Congratulations.
And last but not least, we have Orlando Torres from the New York City Commission on Human Rights.
My name is Orlando Torres, and I work at the New York City Commission on Human Rights. I'm the director of the Bronx office, and I'm going to do a very brief presentation on the city's human rights law, which is going to be very relevant for all of you in your roles, not just as board members, but just as residents and employees, employers, perhaps in the Bronx and in New York City. At the Commission on Human Rights, we begin every single presentation with this slide, just recognizing that we are on the unceded land of the Lenape people. We feel this is a valuable grounding moment for everyone to recognize kind of like a bit of what the Commission is founded on, right? Which is a recognition that this is a diverse land. This is land that belonged to people before us and will belong to people after us. And so we want to be working together at all times to appreciate, recognize, and respect everyone's different perspectives and cultures. So the Commission on Human Rights is essentially a city agency that enforces the city's human rights law, and we work to educate the public on their rights and responsibilities under the law. And so our mandate is to prevent and protect against discrimination in New York City through a few different areas and protect against many different protected classes that we'll discuss briefly here. So the areas that we protect in New York City are employment, public accommodations, housing, discriminatory harassment, and bias-based profiling by law enforcement. And so just a couple notes. In most cases, in order to bring a case to us, the last incident of discrimination has to have occurred within the past year. There is an exception for gender-based harassment. That time period to file is 3 years, okay? But everything else is pretty much a 1-year time limit. And we only cover incidents in New York City. So you either have to be living in New York City, or if you work in New York City but don't live in New York City and you want to bring an employment discrimination case to us, we can take those cases. But we're only going to be dealing with cases in New York City. So, what exactly is discrimination as defined by the city? It's unfair or unequal treatment of a person or a group based on certain characteristics or protected classes, such as race, age, disability, gender identity, things of that nature. And I'm going to show you a list of one example of a protected class list in a little bit. But that's essentially what it boils down to. It has to be unfair or unequal treatment of a person or group based on a protected class. It can't just be that two people don't get along and are always arguing, right? It has to be, that treatment has to be based on a protected class in order for us to take the case. The city understands that discrimination can be multidimensional, can manifest in really clear and obvious ways, or very subtle ways that aren't so obvious, right? And it can occur in interpersonal, institutional, or structural relationships. In order for us to establish discrimination at the Commission in general, we have to be able to show that there's some kind of a relationship that exists between the people involved, right? And so in some of our larger areas where we get the cases most often, like in employment, for example, we want to be able to show that there's a relationship between an employee and an employer. Or in housing, usually it's a tenant and a landlord or a housing provider. In public accommodations, it could be a customer and the owner or the employee of a place of public accommodation. Discriminatory harassment and bias-based profiling from law enforcement are a little bit different. They don't necessarily require that relationship, and I'll talk about those towards the end of the workshop. So I mentioned protected classes, right? Our law is based on prohibiting discrimination based on protected classes. This is the list of protected classes in employment. right? And so when you're looking for work or when you have work in New York City, these are the reasons why you should never, ever face discrimination at your workplace or while you're looking for work, right? I'm not going to read everything off, but you can see it's a long list. Age, arrest or conviction record, credit history, disability, gender identity, citizenship status, pregnancy, salary history, sexual orientation, status as a victim of domestic violence, unemployment status, right? So whether you identify with one of these, a few of these, or all of these, right, you should never be feeling that you're getting discriminated against or not getting certain services at work because of your identification to any of these protected classes. Just a quick example of how that could play out in employment. We look at cases right at the hiring process, right? So let's say, for example, I own a Peruvian restaurant. I'm putting out job advertisements to staff this restaurant. If I put out a job advertisement that says waiter or waitress with experience in Peruvian cuisine, that's totally fine. What I cannot say is something like Peruvian waiters wanted, right? Because as soon as I'm singling out a nationality, I am discriminating against every other nationality that can probably cook or serve any kind of food just fine. You don't need to be Peruvian to cook Peruvian food, right? And so these are the kinds of things that might not always seem so obvious, when we're looking at job advertisements or other things, but they are forms of discrimination, right? Any kind of question about a membership in a protected class during the employment process is probably illegal in New York City because of this law, okay? Same thing on the other end of employment, right? You cannot be fired for being a member of any protected class, whether it's, so you can't be fired because you're a woman, because you're pregnant, gay, or Latina, anything like that. Credit history is also protected in employment under our law, so it's illegal for an employer to request either orally or in writing your credit history. Arrest or conviction history is also protected, so job advertisements should not be saying background check required, clean criminal history required, or no felons anywhere on the job advertisement. I don't care if it's online, on paper, in a newspaper. You're breaking the law if you're posting that as an employer. Reasonable accommodations, right? So one thing we will do is look into cases where there are reasonable accommodations being denied employees, whether they are employees with disabilities, pregnant employees, employees who are victims of domestic violence, or employees with religious observances. And so we'll look into these requests for reasonable accommodations and facilitate a conversation between employer and employee and see if there is any undue hardship that might be caused by this accommodation. If not, we're usually going to decide, on the side of the employee requesting the accommodation. Sexual harassment in employment, obviously illegal, right? But important to understand how the city is looking at it. Sexual harassment is a form of gender discrimination, right? And so that is when someone is treated less well because of their gender, and gender includes gender identity and gender expression as defined by the city of New York, right? So moving away from employment, I could spend an hour on just employment protections alone, but we do not have that time. So talking about public accommodations, right? So just real quick, all members of the public have the right to be treated without discrimination when accessing public accommodations. And so a place of public accommodation can be anything from a taxi cab to a public park, to a restaurant, to a bookstore, or movie theater. It doesn't have to be publicly run or managed to be a place of public accommodation. It's a place where goods and services are being provided, and so those goods and services need to be provided to everyone in the public, right? So some examples of illegal customer service practices might be a restaurant seating white families and then telling a black family that they have no tables available, a park preventing a transgender man from using the men's bathroom, or a homeless shelter not accommodating a resident or prospective resident with a disability. One of the biggest areas of discrimination that we deal with all the time at the Commission, and you may be getting questions and cases coming through your boards as well, is in housing, right? And so just really quickly, who can be held liable for housing discrimination? It's not just the landlord themselves, right? It's superintendents that live and work in buildings, rental and managing agents, real estate brokers and agents, newspapers, if they're posting illegal or incorrect advertisements for housing, lending institutions, insurance companies, and appraisers. One of the most common cases that we come across at the commission is housing voucher discrimination, right? And so one of the protected classes that's specific just to housing is actually just having the housing voucher. So you should never be denied housing just because you have a voucher, right? And so that protected class is technically called source of income. And so lawful source of income includes any form of federal, state, or local government housing assistance, whether it's cash or a voucher. It's income derived from Social Security, child support, alimony, and foster care subsidies, and it can include vouchers for security deposits, one-time emergency vouchers like the one that HRA gives out, the one-shot deal, and rental assistance vouchers, right? So all of those are considered housing vouchers in New York City, and you cannot be denied housing simply because you have one. So, yeah, I just gave an example of a few of these. So Section 8, HASA, City FEPS, SSI, the GI Bill, all considered housing vouchers, right? So, you know, a landlord cannot refuse to rent, sell, or lease housing because the prospective tenant has Section 8. They can't refuse to do repairs for voucher-holding tenants and then do repairs for tenants who don't have vouchers, right? They can't require credit checks when a voucher covers the entire rent and utilities of the apartment. So real quick, some examples of tenant harassment that would come under our jurisdiction but are not source of income related are failing to provide adequate heat because a tenant has children, threatening to call the police or immigration to force an immigrant tenant to leave an apartment, or filing unfounded housing cases because of a tenant's status as a victim of domestic violence in order to intimidate them to leave the apartment. Right, so we could take those cases as well. But again, all of the unfair and unequal treatment happening here is because of a protected class. Right? Sometimes people will bring us cases where the landlord is not doing repairs in any apartment in the building. That's not jurisdictional for us, unfortunately, because technically they're not discriminating based on a protected class. Everyone's getting the same bad treatment. So we tell those tenants, you got to take that to housing court, organize a tenants association. Just something that might come up, you know, in your work. Moving on to the two final areas of the law that I want to cover real quick. Discriminatory harassment is basically conduct motivated by a victim's protected class, right? And so any kind of pattern of verbal threatening harassment, a use of force, intimidation or coercion, defacing or damaging real or personal property, even cyberbullying happening on the street or like when you're entering or exiting your home, in the subway, on a bus stop, that's all considered discriminatory harassment or street harassment. And you can report that to the police, especially if there was violence involved, if there was a bias-based violent incident. But you can also report that to us. We also take those cases. And then finally, bias-based profiling from law enforcement. It's illegal for police officers or peace officers to engage in law enforcement actions and intentionally act against someone based on protected class rather than their behavior or information or circumstances that links that person to suspected unlawful activity, right? But just one thing to keep in mind, unlike other complaints that you can bring to our law enforcement bureau, these claims against law enforcement cannot result in monetary awards to the complainant. In general, penalties and remedies that we can impose are about $125,000 in civil penalties for violations and up to $250,000 for violations that are the result of willful, wanton, or malicious conduct. And those penalties would be in addition to other remedies that could include but are not limited to ordering to provide the accommodation that was denied, mandating attended training, back pay, emotional distress damages, and other out-of-pocket expenses that were related to the discrimination. And so I want to end this. I'm going to leave this up here for a second because I wasn't able to get anything in your folders. So this information is going to be important if you want to get in touch with us. You can call 311 and ask for the Commission on Human Rights. You can also tell people in the community to just call us directly if you'd like. if they have questions or they think they may be getting discriminated against. You can get us directly on our info line by calling 212-416-0197. And everything I talked about today and a lot more is all available on our website, nyc.gov/human rights. We have tons of frequently asked questions, fact sheets, brochures, and a lot of different languages all on the website. It has all the latest information. I really encourage everyone to visit that and just have it at your ready when you're dealing with community, whether in an office or out in the field, because sometimes these things come up and a lot of the questions are actually available to get answered right there. I'm going to leave this QR code up in case anyone wants to give some quick feedback. And that is essentially my presentation for this evening. Thank you.